Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Good morning, everyone from around the world, our on-hold pandemic world. Welcome to Happiness Matters and to learning how to coach ourselves to happiness and success at work, in life, no matter what. I'm Julia Seal, your host. What we've been doing over the last month or so has been reconsidering how we define happiness and success for ourselves. And this is actually something that we started almost a year ago, but more recently we've been looking specifically at how scientists, how the academic world is defining happiness and happiness at work. And so far we've looked at 4 academic models of happiness. And I hope that last week was interesting for you. How did you find using Shoshin? Did it help you navigating your current work from home situation? And how well did you manage to create some flow moments for yourself, even with your family around you? Do let me know. Today, I want to look at some of the excellent research on happiness at work being done in business. So not just at a purely academic level, but the work being led by various management consultancies around the world. So understanding how business is identifying the elements of happiness at work and defining employee happiness, how they're developing new models of employee motivation, satisfaction, employee engagement. And this work is also influencing us in how we're thinking about happiness at a cultural and societal level. So for ourselves and for our own self-coaching, we can certainly learn from them and use them to inform our own individual formulas, our definitions for what makes us happy and successful at work. If you're new to us here at Happiness Matters, please ensure you subscribe to the podcast in your podcast player. Then you'll get every new episode automatically on Tuesday as we release it. We are on all of the major platforms, Apple, and for Android, we're on Stitcher and Spotify and various other players. And you can even find us on YouTube, along with the playlists from each episode. And of course, everything, including the show notes and all the free tools I've created for you, are on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. And for those of you who are not new to us, please do leave us a review. It's easier if you're on Apple. You just scroll down to the end of this episode and hit review. Okay, so let's get started with how happiness is viewed from a business point of view. I'm also going to introduce a well-known management consultancy tool that you can use for your own coaching. So one from the business world of jargon, gap analysis, SWOT analysis, PEST analysis, just for fun, since we're here in the business arena, but we'll adapt it so it's relevant to your own self-coaching. And then we're going to look deeply at 2 research houses and their work, Gallup and the Great Place to Work Institute. So happiness at work, it's a real thing, I promise. It's even got so entrenched in business that I'm now seeing job titles like these ones showing up on LinkedIn. Things like Director of Happiness, or the CHO, Chief Happiness Officer, or the CVO, Chief Vibes Officer, or Happiness Activator, Chief Collaboration Officer, or even, I'm not sure if these ones are real, Chief Heart Officer, Champion of Office Happiness, or Head of Optimistic People. So funny. As you know, I've been in employee engagement for more than 15 years and have watched the field develop from something relatively unknown and often misunderstood to employee engagement now being added to the strategic dashboard, the one thing that business leaders want most to differentiate themselves from the competition. Engaged and happy employees giving their discretionary effort to their companies, going that extra mile above and beyond. And more research is telling us about the benefits of happiness at work. The Greater Good Science Center has a great summary. Happier workplaces report less turnover, lower healthcare costs, fewer mistakes and accidents, more efficiency, greater shareholder value, and quicker rebounds in the wake of adverse events or failures. Just think about that with the COVID virus going on now. They also earn higher customer loyalty, commitment, and business growth via word-of-mouth endorsement. People who are happier at work are more authentic, more committed and driven to work, and more willing to contribute beyond their job descriptions. And they find more flow and meaning in their work, just what we were talking about last week. Being happier at work is tied to better health and well-being, more creative and effective problem solving, more productivity and innovation, and faster career advancement. In the face of adversity and setbacks, people in happier workplaces tend to see the bigger picture, making them less stressed and better at coping with and recovering from work strain, and also better at reconciling conflict. And since today is World Creativity and Innovation Day, you can see how happiness can really play a part here. And lastly, socially, people who are happier at work are rated by others as more likable, more trustworthy, more deserving of respect and attention, and more effective leaders. And at happier workplaces, people are more helpful to each other and more supportive of one another during difficult times. So we want it, don't we? Like I said, happy and successful no matter what. Before we go any further, let's get ourselves ready to coach. And as I said for fun, I'm doing this in business terms, or rather from the world of management consultants and the very serious tools we use to help companies, our clients, perform better. So these tools are nothing new. They are the language of consultants, and I'm sure you know that consultants have any number of fancy name tools and models and formulas. Happiness formulas included. You're a smart businesswoman, you're a leader, so these might be as old hat for you as they are for me. But have you ever applied them directly to your own growth, your own evolution, and your own coaching? Now there's a thought. So we have gap analysis, we have fishbone diagrams, SWOT analysis, the McKinsey 7S framework, the Nadler-Tushman model, PEST analysis, PESTLE analysis, and so many more. All different ways of looking at a business challenge, a business change project, a new initiative, and a journey from where we are now to where we want to be. So from this, I'm sure you might be able to guess which one I'm going to land on for today. Just think back to our Series 1 core coaching episodes, 1.1 to 1.6, the core of Series 1, defining, assessing, and visioning your happiness. A journey from point A, where you are now, to point B, where you want to be, and the coaching in between. Well, what I was doing with you back then was a much more fun, more interesting gap analysis. If you remember, we met Mahatma Gandhi, Odysseus, Harry Potter, and Nelson Mandela along the way. Never mind Doug the talking dog, snakes, leprechauns, ladders, treadmills, and unicorns. I'll put the links to these core episodes in the show notes for you. So gap analysis involves comparing an organization's actual performance with its potential or desired performance, and the gap refers to the gap between the actual and the desired. So organizations and consultants might do gap analyses of business processes or information technology, or in employee engagement, employee satisfaction, wellness, and happiness. Now the gaps actually are the opportunities, in just the same way that we saw our own personal obstacles as becoming the very strategies for our success. Certainly, as we ready our economies to restart, we're looking at what might be the new normal in a post-COVID world, doing a gap analysis on our business, our teams, and ourselves. Our own happiness and success might be just what we need to adapt ourselves. Let me assure you that I didn't just go off in one of my squirrel moments about boring management consultants' analyses tools to show off. although it might look like it. No, I was inspired by something called the happiness gap and various research that's been done in exploring gaps in happiness between countries, socio-economic groups, and cultures. And I've chosen one of these happiness gaps in particular because it's so relevant to us now as we're working from home, juggling home life and working life, and because it's studies like these that are informing the happiness models and the happiness advice that consultants are giving their clients. This particular happiness gap study was first published in 2016 in the American Journal of Sociology and talks about the parenting happiness gap. And there have been others since then, and they've all come to the same conclusion. Regardless of what country you live in and what stage of life you might be at, having kids makes you significantly less happy compared to people who don't have kids. Interesting, isn't it? So keep listening. Don't lose me. It goes on to indicate that North American parents are especially miserable on this front, posting the largest gap, 13%, in a group of 22 developed countries. Every other country had smaller gaps, and some, including Russia, France, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Spain, Hungary, and Portugal, actually showed happiness gains for parents. Now, this is where it gets interesting for today's coaching. The researchers looked at what impact policies such as paid sick and vacation leave and subsidized childcare have on closing that gap. It was 100%. The researchers said, and I'm quoting, "As social scientists, we rarely completely explain anything. But in this case, we completely explain the parental happiness gap. In countries with the strongest family-friendly policy packages, the parental deficit in happiness was completely eliminated, accomplished by raising parents' happiness rather than lowering non-parents' happiness." It's not just one policy like paid parental leave that makes the difference. It's the magic of a package of policies spanning over a lifetime that allow people to care for children, support them financially, and even enjoy them once in a while on a holiday. I think it's important to say this. The researchers do go on to say that it's not that parents are unhappy. They often find parenting fulfilling and wouldn't have it any other way, but their stress levels tend to be high, which often overshadows any happiness to be gained from shepherding another human being through life. Think about this as you juggle working from home, or if you're leading a team working from home. So I've used this study to illustrate the happiness gap that we can see in a gap analysis. Now, when we look at the next two pieces of work, you can do the same. Do a gap analysis for yourself. Perhaps you might consider where your organization is, but for your own self-coaching, let's look at you as an individual. So there's a benchmark, and then there's your assessment of your happiness against this benchmark. Let's start with Gallup. Gallup is a North American management consulting company known for its public opinion polls and for years of work on understanding employee happiness, motivation, and engagement. I introduced Gallup's analytics way back in episode 1.1 when I introduced you to Cantrell's Happiness Ladder that we use every Monday and Friday here on Happiness Matters, and that's also used for the United Nations Annual World Happiness Report. And by the way, the 2020 report is just out, so I'll include a link to it in the show notes too. Gallup, along with the Conference Board, were really at the forefront of the field of employee engagement and creating a whole field of study that is more than just employee motivation and employee mobilization, satisfaction, and productivity. Their survey, the Q12 Employee Engagement Survey, includes some key concepts that we want to explore around our happiness at work. So Gallup's 12 questions are pretty well known by now. But as I list them here, how about you do a gap analysis a happiness gap analysis for yourself right now. Do you know what is expected of you at work? Do you have the materials and equipment to do your work right? At work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? In the last 7 days, have you received recognition or praise for doing good work? Does your supervisor or someone at work seem to care about you as a person? Is there someone at work who encourages your development? At work, do your opinions seem to count? Does the mission or purpose of your company make you feel your job is important? Are your associates, your fellow employees, committed to doing quality work? Do you have a best friend at work? In the last 6 months, has someone at work talked to you about your progress? And the last one, in the last year, have you had opportunities to learn and grow? I thought it would be interesting to do a happiness gap analysis for yourself on this question in particular. It's question number 10. Do you have a best friend at work? Gallup says this question is the most controversial in the 30 years that they've been doing research and opinion polls. And they're right. So many people push back against this best friend item. Not least my colleagues from other management consultancies, but many business leaders and line managers. And typically, these are individuals who see a clear dividing line between work and home life, who are friendly with their co-workers for sure, but don't consider them to be friends, and certainly not best friends. People who frown at chatting around the coffee machine and friendly shared lunch breaks. They see friendship at work as detrimental to productivity. I am fascinated by this question, why it was included, and why after all these years it is still in this Q12 survey, and what we can do for our own happiness at work if we consider it carefully. Gallup has admitted to being tempted over the years to remove this question or to change it. So they've tried, I have a friend at work, rather than I have a best friend at work, because it's the best that's a problem for many people. They've tried using close or good, and they've even excluded it entirely. And what happened when this was done was that Q10 lost its power to differentiate highly productive work groups from mediocre work groups. Amazing, isn't it? The evidence is overwhelmingly for the best friend response and its positive effect on bottom line performance. Across the United States, Gallup says that only 20% of employees strongly agree they have a best friend at work, men and women. And apparently, if this was improved to 60%, if 6 out of 10 people had a best friend at work, companies would have 36% fewer safety incidents, 7% more engaged customers, and 12% higher profit. There's a very concrete link in the research between having a best friend at work and the amount of effort employees expend in their job. Women at work with best friends are twice as likely to be engaged, 63% to 29%. It's astounding. With a best friend at work, women are less likely to be actively looking or watching for job opportunities, more connected with their co-workers, knowing what's expected of them and trusting their integrity and ethics, more likely to take risks that could lead to innovation, more likely to have a positive experience during the day, making more progress and getting recognized for successes, and less likely to report having a negative experience during the day, such as worry, stress, or feeling tired. Now, knowing this about having a best friend at work, do you have a best friend at work? And how might you coach yourself knowing this? How about re-looking at your current relationships at work? Which ones could you focus on and improve? Is this an opportunity for you to pursue some friendships with an eye on your happiness at work? Okay, so that was the Gallup benchmark for you to do your happiness gap analysis. Now let's look at another global management consultancy that's done very exciting work in the area of employee satisfaction and productivity, the Great Place to Work Institute. The Great Place to Work Institute analyzes great workplaces across the world. I think about 6,000 organizations and 10 million employees, and it's been doing this for a long time, about 25 years. And these assessments focus on workplace excellence, management and leadership, and more specifically, the role of trust in workplace culture. You might know them already. They develop standard lists and rankings, such as in America, the Fortune 100 best companies to work for, the most extensive employee survey in corporate America. In Africa, the best companies list, and in Asia, Europe, and Latin America, the best workplaces list. And they have others, such as best practice in leadership, best practice in wellness, best company to work for women. Actually, the origin of the organization is quite interesting. Way back in 1981, a New York editor asked two business journalists to write a book called The 100 Best Companies to Work for in America. And apparently, they were pretty skeptical that they could even find 100 companies back then that would qualify. But so their research began. And what they discovered, and has been built on over the years, is that the key to creating a great workplace is not a prescriptive set of employee benefits, programs, and practices, but the building of high-quality relationships in the workplace. These relationships are not a soft activity, but key drivers that improve an organization's business performance. And the key factor in these high-quality relationships is trust. Trust is the key differentiator in the world's best workplaces. The Great Place to Work has developed the Trust Index employee survey, in essence, an employee workplace satisfaction survey based on their Trust Index model. I've included a link for you in the show notes so that you can read more about the Trust Index model, but here's an overview of this management consultancy formula of happiness at work to help us with our self-coaching. The model considers 3 relationships key to employee satisfaction. Your relationship with management through the dimensions of credibility, fairness, and respect. Then, your relationship with other employees via the dimension of camaraderie. And camaraderie is measured by intimacy, your ability to be yourself at work, hospitality, are your relationships socially friendly and welcoming, and community, there's a sense of family and team. And lastly, your relationship with your actual job through the dimension of pride, which looks at pride in your company, its products, and its standing in the community, pride in your team and the work you produce together, and personal pride in your job and your individual contribution. So these 5 dimensions make up this formula: credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie. So interesting. Another robust definition for you to consider. Okay, so if you were to do your own happiness gap analysis here to see how your working life measures up, what would show up as the single biggest contributor to your happiness at work? And what would show up as the things that are diminishing it, destroying your happiness at work? So interesting when you put it all into the context of trust relationships, doesn't it? Trust relationships with your manager, your colleagues, and with yourself and your job. It's really a huge confirmation of what Gallup is saying, of what Tal Ben-Shahar is saying with Spire, and Martin Seligman with PERMA, and the Greater Good Science Center with PERC. I'm sure you can see why I have a specific individual coaching program that's focused on relationships, our difficult relationships, because so much of our happiness, our whole being happiness, our happiness at work, our success in life hinges on our relationships. Are they supportive, friendly, welcoming, loving, inspiring, joyful, or are they filled with drama, anxiety, pain, and conflict? Remember, you can coach with me on transforming these difficult relationships. My free 20 minutes insight session gives us the chance to explore coaching together, and you can book these from the website Happiness-Matters.coach and click on the yellow button, Coach with Julia. That's our exploration of some of the excellent research on happiness at work being done in business by two groundbreaking organizations that have a long track record of robust data to share with us. I hope you enjoyed looking at these models, these formulas for happiness through the happiness gap analysis lens. Of course, there are several more of these business frameworks, and I'll be building these into the podcast at a later stage. But for now, add this into what you've learned about your own definition of happiness and success so far. Next week, we'll be putting together all of this exploration into the science of your happiness as we consider our own individual power to create happiness in the work environment and how we are the artisans of our happiness and success no matter what. So, artisanal happiness. Just like artisanal coffee, artisanal bread, and artisanal jewelry. Shokunin happiness. So much fun. May you be happy. May you be free. There is no better time to do this coaching together. Bye for now. From Cape Town in lockdown, I'm watching the most beautiful peach pink sunrise above the mountains.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.